Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson, and this is Jective's Typography News number 54. Today is Friday, May 8th, 2026, and per usual, I have plenty of typography news to get into for you today. We're going to take a look at a website, an app that will help you know what language support a typeface has. I've been using this for recent episodes. I wanted to test it out for a couple of weeks to make sure it was worth talking about. It's pretty great. I'm going to get into that at our top story. ATypI continues to upload YouTube videos from 2025, so we'll look at those here in a second. And then I've got five new releases. We've got one from Foundry, Spoke, Brut, Approximate Type, and Flavia, Zimbardi. And then we're going to do three deep dives today. One from DJR. We're going to be looking at Baby Condor. We're going to look at Galera from DualType, and we're going to look at Zombie Vengeance from Remedy 667. Quick note before we get into the stories, this is episode number 54. Episode number 55 isn't going to be taking place until next Tuesday. Let's see what day that would be. That's going to be on the 19th. So gonna have no new episodes next week. Plenty of backlog to go look at, or you could go look at watch some of these ATypI videos that I'm gonna show you here in a second. I'm gonna be moving, so I don't think that I'm gonna miss more than 1 week. We're getting the internet set up tomorrow at the new place. As long as everything goes fine, get everything moved, I will be back next Tuesday on the 19th for episode number 55. So if I accidentally say we're going to look at something next week, just know I mean next week. All right, I'm going to switch my screen. We're going to get right into this. You can probably see the blue glow that just showed up. That's going to be Hyperglot. Let me switch my screen. Boom. Yeah, I'll keep myself up there for now. So this is Hyperglot. Let me pull up a typeface real quick so we can drop one in there. I'll do one that we're going to look at today. Today we're going to be looking at, we said Baby Condor, so let's look for DJR real quick. Okay, so this website, you've seen me show off many times Wacom Fondue. The one thing Wacom Fondue doesn't do is tell you what languages it supports, unless I'm wrong. Rule, let me know if I'm wrong. But you can see what this does here. Oh, it looks like they're getting, I don't know, there's something new on there. Anyway, this is unplanned, but you can scroll through and you can see everything your font can do. But the one thing it doesn't do is tell you what languages it supports, as far as I know. So today we're going to be looking at the website that I've been using to check my language support. So we're going to be looking at DJR's Baby Condor today. Let me go ahead and pull this up. Let's grab the variable one real quick. And you can do a similar thing. You can just drop it in here. I've noticed, though, that when you drop it in here without clearing the previous typeface, you get a bit of a problem because right now it's still showing Canopy up here, despite the fact that we're looking at Baby Condor. This typeface that's on the screen is neither one of them. What I typically have to do is go clear selection, get it to nothing, hit the X here, and you want to drop it into this box. So probably if you go to this website, there won't be anything on the screen. It'll look like this. This is linked in the description. This is Hyperglot from Rosetta Type. I forgot to say that at the top, but Hyperglot, everything's linked in the description, including this. This screen right here, maybe I should take myself off here because I'm probably going to start blocking stuff. We'll put myself right here for now. You can test it out with some of these fonts right here, but since we're going to be looking at Baby Condor, let's go ahead and drop this in. Similar to all the other apps that we've looked on here, Wacom Fondue is typically the one we look at. You can see right here, it'll tell you how many languages, but that doesn't look like Baby Condor to me. So let me go ahead and refresh. This is what I'm talking about. Typically I have to drop it in and then refresh, and then it works. Let's see. There we go. Baby Condor, 317 languages, but for whatever reason, the characters aren't showing. Well, this is live. I don't know why the font's not showing. Typically, it does show up on here. So I don't know. This is the app that I've been using to check my languages, but it seems like when we're doing it live right now, it's not really working too well. So let's go ahead and move on. A little bit of a fail there, but that's okay. This next one's not. I know this next one works. And it is ATypI's YouTube channel. I've talked about this a couple of times now, I think, but I'm just going to drive this home because they continue to upload. Look at this. 1 hour ago, they uploaded something. I lost count because I think 2 days ago was the last time I checked, and there was 49 new videos uploaded here in the last like 3 weeks. It looks like they've added another, 11 more on top of that. So there are 60 videos, 60 presentations from ATypI 2025 in Copenhagen that have been uploaded to ATypI in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Crazy, but that is a lot of content to go watch. It looks like some of it's a little bit shorter than what we looked at before, because you've got some videos on here that are 20 minutes. But a lot of these are somewhere between like 30 minutes and 60 minutes. Yeah, but really good content to go watch if you want to see, if you want a preview of what might be coming from ATypI Stanford in 2026, next month, I think. Go ahead and check that out. If you want to know the kind of content that's going to be there, whether you're going or not, this is a great place to go and find presentations. Just wanted to point it out again. I'm going to be gone next week. So there's a lot of content here to watch if you're looking for more typography on YouTube. With that, we're going to get right into the new releases. This first one I saw on Instagram. So we're going to start here. I'm going to take my face off for sure now so I don't hide anything. So this is Fort Foundry's Instagram, and this right here is the post that caught my eye. This says, secret layer alert, new font, Kodachrome. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Kodachrome. I am not gonna click through these because I have better specimens to look at, so let's go ahead and pull these up. First though, let me explain what this secret layer is. Fort Foundry has an app that's, they partner with Fort and Hoodspa, and you can get all their apps in a very similar way to like Adobe fonts. You use the app, you can activate the fonts. The difference is that if you subscribe, the 1-year plan comes with a free license. So if you're looking at some of these fonts, the 1-year price is actually sometimes can be cheaper than actually just buying a font outright. Kodachrome right here, you'll see though, it's got a secret layer next to it. Secret layer, from what I understand, is basically like a beta version, because I do have access to this, and it doesn't seem to be a full font right now. So I think it's similar like future fonts where they're giving you access to it early because you're using the Fort app, and then as the full releases come out, those will be available to the public. But for right now, Kodachrome is only available if you are using the Fort app. And I was told to keep this link a secret, but it doesn't look like I need to because you can get to it right from the website. So I am not going to worry about it. These are the specimens that I was going to look at though. Let me go ahead and go ahead and pull these up nice and big because I did get these ready for us. So we might as well look at them at full size. This typeface is called Kodachrome. It's from Fort Foundry. It is inspired not by Futura, despite what it may look at like at first glance, not by Futura, but all of the Futura knockoffs that came shortly afterwards. So think Spartan, think 20th Century, think Tempo, think Airport. You might even throw Century Gothic in there since that's kind of a 20th century revival of its own, or a digital revival of its own. But you can see this looks pretty similar to Futura. But the thing about this one was that they were looking at all of those, I'll say imitations to be a little bit nicer than saying knockoffs. But they were looking at all of those Futura competitors that came out, and they really liked some of the things that those competitors were doing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Futura is in no way a perfect typeface. But I think it's pretty interesting because a lot of people do look at Futura. Here's the official description. A lot of people do look at Futura and try to make revivals of that, or try to make something that's like what Futura would be like now. They're specifically going in, and you can see they were more interested in typefaces like Tempo, Spartan, 20th Century, Airport, and even more, it says there. But I love these specimens. Fort Foundry, Hoodspa, they always put out amazing specimens. So this definitely caught my eye on Instagram, and I reached out and got a review license for this. So we're definitely going to look at this. But when I did pull up the review license for it, let me go and see if I have this open for next week. I do have the review license for it. So I'm not going to do the deep dive today. I'm not going to show you much of anything today. But I just want to show you that I have played around with this a little bit. The characters are pretty limited right now. I think the character set, if we go down to the bottom here, you can see the character set is pretty limited at the moment. But it does say that there are going to be italics added and a variable and more just more added to this when the full release comes out. So I'll be looking forward to that. I am going to have access to the full font when it does fully release. But for now, the one way to access this, the one way to get it is through the Fort app. So if you want to test that out, go check it out. It's linked in the description. I've got this here, the Fort Foundry website linked in the description. And the first thing there is going to be the app. So let's move on to the next one here. The next one is going in the opposite direction. This is a future font, so also beta. I'm going to get a drink of water. This one's coming from Spoke. So I'm also going to open up the PDF specimen while we're here. This is Zipp from Spoke. And Spoke is T-O, oh, dang it, I didn't write down his name. Okay, we'll just stick with Spoke for now. So if you don't know, if first time here, Future Fonts releases, type foundries and designers release typefaces onto Future Fonts, and they release them in progress. They release them as betas. And you can purchase the typefaces for less than it would cost when the full release comes out. And it helps to support the typeface get developed, as well as gives you early access to it. And a lot of times too, you can provide feedback to help make the typeface even better. So I'm just going to click through a few of these right now. I did download the trial on this one. You can do that as well. Right now, the glyph count on the trial is just 80 glyphs, but there are 16 total weights on this. If we go back to this one right here, 16 total styles, 8 weights plus italics, and it's looking pretty good already. I'm not going to read you the whole description here for Zipp, but the short story is that this is it falls somewhere between Clarendon and Caslon. And I did download the trial, so I'm going to show you that in Affinity really, really quick. But once again, this is not a deep dive today. I think I might actually look at this when we come back after next week's break. So with any of the new releases that I'm showing you, if you want to see deep dives on them, go ahead and let me know in chat or leave a comment, because I 100% do decide what typefaces I'm going to do deep dives on based on what you guys have to say. So this is Zipp right here. You can see it looks pretty nice. We'll do a quick like double row A to Z, and you'll see the Clarendon, you'll see the Caslon. As soon as I saw this C, I thought of Caslon immediately. Same with the G there. But as soon as you get to see this R right here, there's actually an alternative for it. And when you get into some of these alternate R's, you're really getting a lot more Clarendon out of that, aren't you? But then you come to the S and it feels much more like Caslon. So I do think it sits perfectly in the middle of those. This is not a real ampersand. I don't think the ampersand is part of the typeface yet. But you can see it in body copy, already looks good. But I just wanted to show you this super, super fast. I've got Adobe Caslon on top, Consort Recast on bottom. Consort Recast is essentially a Clarendon expanded by a Clarendon expanded into more weights and stuff like that. Recast was done by Dalton Mogdus recently, so I am planning to look at this. If we do the deep dive, we'll be looking at all these together. But just real quick, let's look at the C and the Q. This is the Caslon C. This is the Zipp C. Let's look at the Q. This is the Caslon Q. Looks nothing like the Zipp Q, but you come down to Clarendon or Consort Recast, and you've got that kind of Q. And then you've got the R that kind of matches up there. We've already seen this one, but I'll go ahead and show you again. You can get the R that's more like the Clarendon. So it's a slab serif typeface that's got brackets on it, but the brackets aren't quite as big as the Clarendon, and they're not quite as humanist as Caslon. So I really do think the description is very fitting, and I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that super fast. because I think this is an interesting one, and I don't know if I'm actually going to do a deep dive on it. So I did just want to give you that little peek real quick. But the good thing is you go to Future Fonts. This is linked in the description. You can download the same trial that I just showed you for free. You just need to make an account with Future Fonts and you can download it and test it out yourself. Next up, we have one from Brut. So this one here is going to be less of a new typeface and more of an expansion. This is Brut's new typeface, Brut Grotesque Mono. And as the name suggests, it is a monospace version of Brut Grotesque. So Jim Girth is in chat. Hey, Jim, how's it going? Hope you're having a good Friday. So you can see this doesn't look too nice right here, this little display. And at first I was like, man, why did they do that? Like, why wouldn't they fix it? But this is actually live. So you can shoot. This is actually live. I'm not sure if I hit reset right there. It's refreshing every time I try to highlight it. So I'm not going to do that for a third time. But you can edit this. I did it before, but that's why it looks so bad right there, because you can edit those. I was a little bit hesitant not to talk about this one today, but to say that I might do a deep dive on it. But after I got to the bottom of this, I honestly think that I probably will. Typically expansions, I'll announce them, but I'm not super excited to do deep dives into them because, you know, going from proportional to monospaced, I mean, monospace fonts all kind of feel a little bit the same. But then I got down to some of these features and stuff, and I was like, okay, ligatures, I've seen those in a monospace typeface before. I don't really see a lot of value in them because it messes up the monospace. You know, like the whole point of monospace is that things take up the same space. Then you've got these ligatures all of a sudden that don't. So like your FF don't take up the same space. They take up the space of one character. Weird, but you know, we've seen stuff like that before. The www on here is kind of cool. They've got the uppercase www and they also got the th there. I like these ligatures in general, and if you're not using these for coding or something, then it's perfectly fine to use these. There's absolutely no problem with it. But then we got down to some of these characters, the alternate A, the alternate G. That's fine. We've seen these. But I started to see these little background, these little badges that they've got here. And they have these badge type shapes for almost every character, maybe every character in the whole thing. I know they have them for numbers and lowercase. And that really caught my eye. They've even got small caps on here. So they've got small caps. They've got these not just circled numbers, but like circled glyphs, circled letters. They've got case sensitive punctuation. All of these crazy things that would make sense in a normal typeface, like a proportional typeface, but struck me as very odd in a monospace typeface. Obviously, you don't have to use a monospace typeface only for coding or only for keeping things perfectly in line. You can just use it for the aesthetic. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. You could still use this completely monospace like normal. And you can see some of that here, but it's got old style numbers. It's got lining figures. Obviously, it should have lining figures. But yeah, small caps, you already saw that. I just want to get down the numbers here. So you can see the numbers here, stylistic set 1. And you can see they've got the rectangles, they've got circles, they've got hexagons, they've got the outlines of each of those 3. Then they've got these like, these ones that are like shaded with lines. I don't know, it's not hatch marks because those would be going both directions. But I think these are really interesting. Again, I don't know that I'm actually going to do a deep dive on this. But of all the monospace typefaces that I've covered, this is the most interesting one that I've seen because it just seems like it's doing so much more than you initially think that it is. It's even got fractions. It's, I don't know. I don't know how practical a lot of this stuff is in the context that you would typically want a monospace font to work. And I'm also not sure how these ligatures and things are going to work if you put this into like VS Code or something like that. I don't know how they'd perform. Maybe that in itself is a reason to check this out. But I know you probably can't see these because they're all teeny tiny, but they've even got like dice on here. Let's see if how much I can zoom in on this. I could probably, yeah, they've got dice, they've got dominoes, they've got Maybe those are just dice. No, they're just dice, but they're like shaped like dominoes. But they've got all kinds of weird stuff going on in here. And Brut Grotesque Mono kind of took me for surprise. So it's more than just an expansion on Brut Grotesque. It is a monospace, brother to Brut Grotesque, but it's doing a lot more stuff than I would typically expect from a monospace typeface. Jim Girth says, "Love a good mono as a software engineer." I can appreciate that. What is your favorite monospace typeface, Jim? We've got 2 more new releases here. The next one we're definitely doing deep dive on. So you can request it if you want, but we're definitely doing it. It's going to be coming from Approximate Type, and this one is called Canopy. I am actually going to read the description for this one because it's so perfectly well written. I want other type foundries and designers to see this and understand what a good description looks like. But I'm sitting here on this page because I want to point out how simple, but how much work this video can do to really make the typeface stand out and feel bigger and more important than, let me pull up the PDF specimen for this one. If we just looked at this right there, it looks great. That's nice. I get it. This is easier to do. But man, this is the kind of thing, and people are going to feel some type of way about this, but this is the type of thing that I think AI is really going to help type foundries and designers with, is just, you need a background, you need a video in the background of something just to throw your text on top of, because this looks so much better than this. I get, we want to see this too. We want to see the full, we want to see everything in the PDF. We want to see the specimen. But in terms of like getting graphic designers and any creative's attention, simple things like this make your font feel so much more premium. Like I said, I'm going to read the description on this because I think it does such a good job explaining what it is. But you can kind of see what it is right now. It's a single weight display font, but they're going to say that, so I don't want to take away from it. I'm going to see if we can zoom in on this. This is actually written in Canopy, so you'll still get to see it as we read it. I see you, Jim. So this is Approximate Type's Canopy. Canopy is unapologetically a one-weight display typeface with a severe amount of flair and ornamentation. I think that definitely shines through. Originally designed for the exhibition Hieroglyphs, Symbolist Drawings 1890 to 1910 at the National Gallery of Denmark in 2018. It embodies the symbolist's fascination with dreams, mysticism, and the natural world. The shapes are quote-unquote pregnant with meaning, as the symbolist would have put it. Additionally, Canopy draws loose inspiration from the lettering of the cover of Practice Technicursus 1900, a technical manual for painting and drawing favored by many artists of the time. This has so much packed into it. In terms of, this was designed specifically for that exhibition. As such, they got to really go all out with making this fit the theme. And I love a typeface that really is specifically like purposely made for something. So this is made for symbolist drawings and specifically from 1890 to 1910. And did you see where they pulled the inspiration from? A 1900 technical manual. Let me show you this manual real quick because I do have it. So you can see right there, the lettering there. Let's see if we can get this. Let's just pull it up side by side with the specimen so I don't mess up that other page. But you can see these two next to each other, and you could see a little bit of the inspiration, right? Like it's got the same vibe to it without completely just taking this hand lettering, this typography that's on the cover of this. But yeah, so they're drawing from, think about this being designed for the exhibition. They're drawing from that period using a manual that the people that the exhibition is about would have been using at the time. I love that. I love everything about this so far. I do have to do my deep dive on it when we come back from the break, but I already reached out to Approximate Type. I was so excited about this one, and I did get a review license of this one. So let me see if I have it in Affinity already. If I do, I'll give you a quick preview of it in here. Yeah, so I already have it here. I'm not going to get too far into it. because, we'll do a real deep dive on it. But the things that immediately caught my eye were like this 4. It almost looks like a flame like going up. And that goes through the whole typeface. You can see the W there, but it's got so much going on. And it really does feel like, I don't know. It just feels, it feels like it says here, the dreams, mysticism, natural world. Like it just feels something ethereal. I'm excited about it. I'm not going to get even more into it right now. I guess I could give you it's only one weight. Like I said, just the one you're looking at right here. 502 glyphs on this one, and language support is 401. Price on this, 55 euros, just to give you a spoiler, 55 euros on desktop. Everything about this seems really, really good so far. Let me respond to chat real quick. Jim Girth says, I've recently come across Jim Girth says, I've personally been using Mononico since forever. I'm not familiar with that. Let's see. Mononaki. Let's see what this looks like. And then said, I've recently come across the Monospace superfamily. I've seen that too, Monospace, which does some super cool stuff with spacing. Onji Studio says, I'm no software engineer, but I love Yorick, Wolf Mono, and Io Sevka. Man, I'm gonna have to look up all of these off of live stream. Yes, I don't think we're gonna get through 5 of them real quick. Oh yeah, that looks nice. It kind of reminds me of the Ubuntu font with those ends there. Yeah, it's got some rounding to it. Nice. I'm gonna have to look into some more monospace fonts because I know that there are very how would you say it, very characterful and interesting ones, but in my brain a monospace font is a monospace font, and I know that that's not true at all, just from OG Studios Wolf Mono. I'm familiar with Wolf Mono as well, from OnoType, and it is anything but your typical monospace typeface. This last one we're going to look at today for new releases coming from Flavia Zimbardi, and it is ZC Casual. I did pull up Future Fonts because this is where it started. So we started out with a Future font with, our second one from Spoke was a Future font that was in its version 0.0 or 0.1 for beta. This one actually finished. So ZZ Casual finished up and it's graduated, and it is no longer available to purchase from Future Fonts, but you can buy it from the Foundry website. So we'll go ahead and look at that. But I think the specimens are probably pretty similar here. Let's go ahead and scroll down. They're probably better up to look at here. So this is ZZ Casual. It's from Flavia Zimbardi and Caetano Calomino, and that's where the ZC is coming from. The Z is from Zimbardi and the C is from Calomino. But it is what is called a speed stroke, single stroke casual sign painting, hand lettering, or sign painting, I guess would be most accurate, typeface. And it's got 5 weights here. It is variable. I'm assuming that's going to be the weight because there are only five styles to it. But it looks pretty nice. I do not know enough about sign painting to be able to comment on this with very much credibility or confidence, I guess is the best word. I wouldn't be too confident to say whether this is good or bad, but this is a speed stroke that has what she is calling a Brazilian spin to it. And I'm currently living in Brazil, in Curitiba, and I would say that I see a lot of sign painted signs in Brazil. Very few look as good as this. But it does feel very sign painted. Like it feels like sign painted. It feels authentic. It feels like it should. So I think that in itself makes it worth looking at if that is what you need for a project. I don't necessarily know what makes this Brazilian, because like I said, for me, I just don't have enough experience with sign painting to know what would be different from this versus something like Dual Casual from DualType or any of the other sign painting typefaces that we've looked at. I'm sure there are some specific things that would someone with more experience and more expertise, those are the same word, more confidence in this, more knows more about sign painting, especially in Brazil, might be able to point out the things. But it would have been nice had she pointed them out and told us what was different about sign painting in North America and Europe and things like that. But they look really nice. The specimens look great, and it does feel authentic. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to get into some deep dives now. I think we're making good time so far. Feeling like we're moving fast. I talked about this one last episode. Actually, yeah, all three of them that we talked about last episode are going to be our deep dives today. We got a DJR DualType and Remedy 667. So Baby Condor, I think this was actually 2 episodes ago. Baby Condor is a textified version of Condor. So let me see if I still have the fonts in use one. Condor is actually available on Adobe fonts if you want to check out the original Condor, but this is Condor on fonts in use. It's been used for the Artemis 2 patch. You can see Hansen down there. The Canadian Space Organization, I don't know what necessarily it's called, is using it. Fantastic Four, Marvel's using it. They're using it here again on Marvel Spotlight. It was on Jeopardy for the Masters down there. So Condor is a typeface that's been in use since 2010 when it released from Font Bureau, but people were using it for things that they probably shouldn't. Like I said before, it was used on the Artemis 2 patch that went on the astronaut's spacesuit. That's too small for what Condor was meant to do, and you can see the example here. I am going to show you this in Affinity a little bit closer, so let's go ahead and look at that instead. Let me close out of next week's, and let's look at Baby Condor. So this is Baby Condor right here. I'll give you, let me just give you the preview real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. This is Baby Condor on the right, this is Condor on the left, and you can see just how much more legible Baby Condor is. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves though. Let's look at some details. This was released as the font of the month for April for DJR, David Jonathan Ross. Comes in 10 styles. Condor, I think, is up to like 60 styles. Go check Adobe Fonts if you want to see that. Or you can go to DJR. He does do full trials, so you could download everything there as well. 10 styles, it's variable, 581 glyphs, 15 OpenType features, 317 languages. You can purchase this from the Foundry, just $24 for the family. Great license on this one. The license combines desktop, web, and app. And it just goes by the size of your company. And if you can't afford that, there is like a reduced license, how do you say this? Reduced price for people who would $24 would cause like an undue hardship on. So this is it. Let's go ahead and look at it. Let's look at some weights and then we'll look at it up close real quick. So we've got a weight axis and we've got a slant axis. So let's get these all down to the light version, and it goes all the way up to extra bold. Builds quite a bit of contrast into it compared to the light, but compared to Condor, you're going to be getting a lot less contrast because this is made for small sizes. So even though we're looking at this nice and big, just remember this is a text font, so it might not be quite as elegant as Condor at these big sizes, but it's purpose built, it's very practical release, and it's made to put Condor at smaller sizes because that's how it's being used. And it was never designed for that. Oh, I forgot to look at the slant. I apologize. So let's get this in the middle. Let's get it at like a 400. And let's play with the slant. Notably, Baby Condor has a slant variable axis, while Condor has an italic. So I think that just comes down to, fonts, variable fonts not having like superset standards. But with a slant axis, you can actually do a forward and you can actually do like your italics and retalics or whatever people want to call them, backslants. It looks nice. Let's go ahead and look at this in Roman though, upright. Jim Girth says, yeah, the side-by-side is crazy, really shows the proper visual weight can make. Absolutely. I'll come back to those in just a second. We're going to look at this A to Z real quick so I can show you what the typeface looks like, but it does have quite a bit less contrast, but it still feels a lot like Condor. And even if you're not familiar with Condor, I think that this still looks very nice. It's kind of simple and, because it does have less contrast. But if you're using Condor, if you want to use Condor, now you've got something for those small sizes. The green glyphs are going to be alternates. So we'll look at those in just a second. But this is a very suddenly like a very legible typeface. I mean, with the reduced contrast and the bigger X height and the looser spacing on it, it becomes much more legible. It's still not a typeface that you should use in a lot of text, but it's a typeface that you can now use at smaller sizes. Okay, let's look at some of these alternates super fast before we start doing the comparisons. I think that this typeface is pretty straightforward. Most of them that we're going to look at today are pretty straightforward, but we'll go ahead and go through everything just for the sake of it. Let me go ahead and show you both U's at the same time. So you can see the lowercase u has the stem on it, the uppercase u does not. This is standard, but you can do the lowercase with the uppercase style, and you can do the uppercase with the lowercase style. So that's kind of fun. I have no reason that I would ever want to use the lowercase version for the uppercase, but you never know. You never know what situation might arise where you might want to do it. And then you've got the W here that can do a more complex W, he's calling it. This is the complex W. This is the default one. And then we've got a single story A as well. So you get the single story A that's going to be a little bit more cohesive with the A, B, C, D there. And I think that looks pretty nice too. I prefer the two story on that one. I feel like the joints on the single story just remind me too much of the C. But it does feel more cohesive if you're doing a logo or something like that. Just to drive home the point, which is pretty much what we're going to do for the rest of this, just showcase the difference between these two. I did play around with the spacing and stuff on Condor to get it close to Baby Condor. I can show you that in a second. But Condor actually has 3 axes on it. So it has the weight, same, but it also has a width axis. So you can get much more condensed. This is called compressed, all the way up to extended. So you can see it's going clear off of my text frame. So it can get pretty wide and pretty narrow. The text or Baby Condor is purposely built for small sizes. I wouldn't expect this much range out of it, but you never know with DJR. He might get crazy and do it anyway. But for the sake of this, I would assume that this is just going to be, what size did we do? We did extra bold. I apologize. 1 second. Can we just do extra bold here? Let me check the weight. 800. Let's set this one to 800. Boom. But even setting both of these at extra bold right now, you can see how much more space Condor takes up, or Baby Condor takes up on the bottom compared to the top. The other thing I wanted to point out is this L by default has the little tail on it. In Condor, the original made for display, the L could be turned on with an alternate. With Baby Condor, can you turn on? I don't know that you can make the L less legible. I don't think you can. For some reason I thought that you could, but now I'm looking and I don't see anywhere to do it. So Baby Condor has the legible lowercase l. That way you can tell it apart from the capital I. Whereas in Condor, it is not the default. This is an alternate to make it do that. Okay. Let me show you this in body copy because I think this is really the way that you would look at it to see the difference. It's more expanded than the regular Condor. It's got looser spacing. It's got a bigger X height on it. I'm not sure why that's happening. I feel like my brain's not working this episode. I apologize. I'm always apologizing. Here we go. You can see how much more space that's taking up, how much bigger the X height is. We pull this closer over here. You can see how much more we're able to read this. What a big difference that it makes. It's not meant for body copy, like I said. This is one of the specimen or one of the references that was on the Condor website, this top part here, the Condor webpage. So I went ahead and set both of these, and I think you'll probably agree. I've got this one at one of the expanded sizes, expanded black or extended black for Condor, whereas Baby Condor has no different widths. But I just set these at kind of like the same space, and I think that Condor still looks much better for these display type situations. And it's the only one of the two that's going to get you close to like this signage right here, to like that really wide signage that served as one of the inspiration points for this. Let's see what it looks like if we pull it all together. So There is a nice glyph in here that's for Condor. I think we saw it up. No, we didn't see it. I deleted it. I apologize. There is a Condor glyph in there. I went ahead and cut off his head just to show you these two things together. So this would be Condor up here. Looks nice and big. You can still use it for all the display stuff. It's still going to look amazing. And this is one of the compressed versions. You can make it bigger. You can make it normal. But now you can set it with your text version, Baby Condor, down here at the bottom. And it's just going to feel a lot better. So I think that this is a practical release. I think that it makes a lot of sense, and I don't think there's much more to say about it. You know, you get a version of Condor that now works at smaller sizes, not made for text, but people were using it at text sizes, so he made a version that looks much better at text. That was Baby Condor by DJR. Next up, we have a release from DualType. I am going to pull up the website on this one. Gonna get a drink of water while these two load. And I'm gonna close all of these tabs that I have open. I'm not someone that likes to have a bunch of tabs open. I leave them open for a few seconds in case someone comments about something. But next up, we have a new release from DualType. This is Galera, and I mentioned this one in a previous episode. It is a fresh interpretation of eras. Eras was originally released in either 1958 or 1961. The story is unclear, and even more unclear if you check the Wikipedia, because Wikipedia only has ITC eras, so it's going to tell you that it started in 1976, whereas eras actually started much earlier than that. There is a journal entry to go along with this typeface release. See if we can zoom in on this. I'm not sure that makes it any better. We're just going to look at the pictures, so let's keep it here. There is a journal entry that goes along with this, written by Jen Ramirez, the designer, and I'm just going to kind of go through this real quick. Let me put these two side by side so we can see a little bit of this together. He's got some really fun specimens down here that I think, if we're looking at these right here, on the left is Galera, on the right is some of the inspirations and stuff, and I think that it just helps paint the picture a little bit better. So his dad was a sign painter. He had a sign painting workshop, and he said that's where the story begins. The eras used to be in manuals for sign painters, so they could show these to customers so that they could use them as references. And people wouldn't directly copy eras, but they would, what he would say is they would absorb it and then reproduce it in their own style. In his area in Mexico, I forget where, these aspects of eras started showing up in some of the sign paintings. So you can see the R's on here in Mercado and Mariscos. You can see the P's do the same thing. You can see some of the spacing and stuff like that started to show up, and because some sign painters were doing it, other sign painters started doing it, and it started showing up everywhere. You could see it on hardware stores, and you got an internet cafe, it looks like here. You've got gas and lighting, all kinds of stuff, sunglasses up there. Then in 1998, it was used for the France World Cup. Once again, it became prevalent, became popular again. So he decided to reproduce this, and his initial inspiration was to do it in the way that his dad would have done it as a sign painter, and kind of recreate this aesthetic that was prevalent and popular. But as he started doing it, it got closer and closer to eras. He realized that ITC eras was missing a lot of features that people would want in 2026. I've got some statistics, some numbers, some details to look at for you. He was originally doing this with concave terminals on it, and then ended up getting rid of them because you could see the outlines here weren't working too well. And there was some other interpolation and things like that, hinting that wasn't working quite as well. So this is not supposed to be a replacement or a one-to-one for ITC eras. I think that it kind of is, even if that's not what the intention was. I think, I mean, people still use Helvetica, even though Helvetica New and Helvetica Now and Helvetica World and, you know, all these other versions of Helvetica have released. People still use the original Helvetica. I'm sure people will still use ITC eras. It comes on, it comes with Microsoft Word, or at least it used to. So it's probably, if you have a PC, it's probably already in your font folder. But I do think that this is a superior version. If you don't like if you don't mind the changes to some of the quirks. So DualType, Jen Ramirez, 9 weights on this. It is variable, 713 glyphs, 24 OpenType features, 362 languages. You can get it from the Foundry. There is no trial, so I did reach out and got a review license on this one. $280 for the family on desktop. I've got an asterisk there. I'll get to that at the end when we talk about the license, but it's got a standard license on it otherwise. Let me just give you some perspective on this for ITC eras, just with these 3 numbers right here, or these 4 numbers right here. We've got 9 weights on this one. ITC eras only had 6. If you got this with Microsoft Word, you probably only got 4 styles rather than 6. As far as glyphs goes, the glyph count on this one is 713. ITC eras is only 261. OpenType features, 24, you can see there, only 7 with ITC eras. 362 languages with Galera, only 226 with ITC eras. So you're going to be able to do a lot more with this, a lot more glyphs, a lot more language support, and a lot more OpenType features. That's probably the most important part, but definitely language support is a plus. Let's look at the weights first, then we'll do the A to Z. Let's look at the weights first here. That A definitely stands out. I know in one of the last episodes, Raquel was pointing out the A. She really liked that one, and you can see the weights here. I am jumping up from one to the other, but this does have a nice smooth interpolating variable axis. So that looks really nice right there. It's doing some interesting things. You might notice this W right here popping. This is a carryover from eras. You can see it crosses right there, and then it turns into a more simple W at the heavier weights. That's something the eras was doing as well, but let's go ahead and look at this at the regular weight, get this at 400. It does have a slight lean to it. So you can see, I think the original had like a 3 or 4 degree axis on it. So there was never an italic version of this. It's kind of always a little bit italic. It's always a little bit slanted. So that could definitely be a drawback for some people for something like FIFA, like we just saw a second ago. That's great. That's great because it moves things forward. It feels like it's in motion. You could see the P there, a pretty big gap on that. We'll look at this compared to ICT eras in a second, but same with the R here. In general, it's very legible. You can see there are very, very open counters. Look at that S there. If we go back to the C, very, very, very open counters on this. Let's get back in line here. This W here is the one that's crossed over. Let me get a little bit lighter on this so you can see the crossover versus the simple one. But everything looks really nice. I've got the @ symbol here because that is one big change that they made, that Jen made on this. There's the iconic A right there. And you can see this has a pretty tall X height, but even so, the ascenders were enlarged on this one. Ascenders were enlarged on this one to make it a little bit more legible. And we'll compare those in a second because as tall as this X height is, it looks much more legible when you're sitting right next to ITC eras. As you can see that slash right there, this is going to have real fractions on it. Go ahead and show you that now. Looks pretty nice. Sort of weird spacing between the 5 and 6 there when we get to the fractions, but when it's when it's full size here, it looks nice. This also does have old style on it, which typically on a sans serif I wouldn't love, but this one just has a little bit of flaring to it. It feels like the old style numbers work very, very nicely there. Let me show you these two alternates real quick, and then I will show you the comparison. Similarly to Baby Condor, this one's pretty straightforward. You know, it's a reinterpretation, but essentially it's kind of a better version of ITC eras. There's a single story A right there. I've got the C here. This C is actually not what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the Sadia, the C with the little hook on the bottom of it, because there's an alternate for this, and I'm not sure if it's going to matter to anybody, but there it is right there. It also has Bulgarian alternates and a Serbian alternate, but I know nothing about those, so I'm not even going to pretend to be able to show you that. Let me show you this, though, compared to ITC eras. I've got the lightest weight and I've got the heaviest weight. Technically, Galera, that's black. This is ultra. I think Okay, I've got the heaviest weight and almost the lightest weight. So Galera can go even lighter than this. ITC Eras, this is the light version. Galera has extra light and then thin. So it can get really, really, really thin, even thinner than the thinnest of ITC Eras. So you do just have more, more range with Galera just right out of the gate. We've already talked about all the numbers, you know, more language support, more glyphs, more OpenType features, but more weights might be, you know, the most obvious thing. So I've highlighted a bunch of red characters here. I'm gonna go through these as fast as possible without being obnoxious. But I just wanna show you some of the differences. Right off the bat, you'll probably notice some of the proportions are different. This is probably the most significant change. Let me just go ahead and show you the lowercase m. This is Galera's, and this is Era's. So if we get these both on screen at once, man, I know it's not great to be able to compare them like this, but hopefully you can tell Galera is a little bit looser, a little bit wider. I mean, we could just pull this down real quick, and you can see how much wider the M is on Galera. A lot of these other ones, though, we won't have to do the overlap like that. Even bigger, more pronounced gap on the K between the leg and the leg and the arm and the stem there. There is a tiny gap in ITC Eras, but it's very, very pronounced in Galera. Same with the P and the R here. You could see these giant gaps. And that was one of the things from the sign painting that they were pulling into their sign painting, even though they weren't copying ITC Eras. They were pulling in some of these aesthetics from the P and the R. And my assumption here is that that's one of the pieces that he pulled from that and exaggerated that a little bit because that's how some of the sign painters were doing it. Just want to point out here this W that we looked at before. It is doing the same thing as Eras. They're fixing it with the heavier weights. So no change there. You know, the W is a little bit different, but in terms of that particular aesthetic, there's not too much difference there. Let's see if we can get these both on the screen at once so I don't have to zoom in and out as much, make you guys motion sick. You can see the ampersands. They're similar, but I think this is a nice change. You can see the ampersand here doesn't quite have the lean to it that the Y and the Z right next to it do. Whereas the ampersand on Galera on top there, it feels like it leans a little bit more with the typeface. It feels appropriate. It feels just a little nicer. This is probably the most controversial change in my opinion. This is the original @ symbol. It has that iconic A inside of it. Jen wasn't a fan of that. And I do think that this one is more legible. The shape looks nicer. Using that alternate single story A to make the @ symbol. But I would love to see an alternate. I would love to see just find some way to make this work because that A right there from Galera is just so iconic. It feels like such a loss to not be able to have it in the @ symbol there. Maybe, I'm sure he gave it a shot. Maybe it just doesn't work. This one feels pretty awkward, but I don't know. I feel like there has to be some way to get that in there. But he's the master, not me. So let's look at this X height real quick. I'm going to pull Galera down on top of this one. And you can see on the left here, this D that I'm moving left and right, that is Galera. And you can see how much higher the extender, the ascender is on this one. X height, pretty similar. Maybe a little bit taller, but the ascender is significantly higher. Still a short ascender, but it's much higher than on Eras. And you can see on this B and the D here, those are really, really short. If I was doing a review on a new release and I saw that, I'd be like, these are pretty short. But the R is a little bit different too. So this just goes along with the proportions. You can see the lowercase r's here. Eras on the bottom there. It's just a little bit more condensed. And then the one here on Galera is just a little more pronounced than it is on Eras, which I don't really have a significant opinion on that. I do think that Galera looks more appropriate, whereas this one looks pretty stubby and kind of chopped off. But my bigger note here with the numbers is how bad the spacing is on ITC Eras. I'm not sure what's going on here with the 0, 1, 2. But it definitely looks better with Galera. Even, you know, you could do tabular on this and it'll space it out for you. It looks like by default, let's see if we can swap it. and you can't swap it by default. Eras has tabular spacing on it, and there's no way to turn that off because it just didn't have the OpenType features to be able to do that. So that's unfortunate. Maybe the Pro version does. I just have the standard version. People don't really do Pro and standard anymore. I know one Foundry that does, but I won't call them out. I just want to show you the heavier weights here, because when you're at the thinner weight, you don't necessarily get a chance to see these J's. So see how thin these J's are? They just almost look mono stroke or mono width on there. Jim Girth says, nice comparison. Also, the Q is much clearer in the new one. Yeah, the Q, same way with the, I'll bring this one up. I didn't highlight the Q there, but it's a good eye. You could see, I know it's kind of ugly, but you could see the Q on the bottom here is from Eras. Similar to the Ascenders, the Q here on Galera has a little bit longer tail, and yeah, it just is a little bit easier to read. It feels like it even has a little bit more stress to it. Yeah, definitely. The Q is much nicer as well. These J's here, though, you couldn't really see these at the lighter weight, but I think there's a little bit of awkward weight in the turn here on these J's from Eras that I feel gets sorted out and made a little bit more, I don't know, more beautiful in Galera. It just feels like it fits a little bit better. Let me make this as big as possible. So top is Galera, bottom is Eras, and yeah, the J's just look nicer, big ones and small ones, and that carries capitals and lowercase, and that carries over to the lowercase g as well. The G and the J here, it's great that they're cohesive. They look fitting together. They have their own charm, particularly the G, I feel like has a lot of charm to it. But I don't know. If you don't care about losing that charm, I do feel like this carries the weight a lot better. Like it feels just more proportionally balanced, or just more balanced. I like, though, the A on Eras a little bit better. It's iconic for a reason. Look at the space that you're getting, that counter between the top of the A and the bowl of the A, that space right here. And then look at the space on Galera. It's much more open. Obviously, that's going to make it more legible, but it just doesn't follow the shape of that bowl anymore. And I feel like you're losing something because this one just feels so perfect. I'm sure, though, that closes up. I'm sure it causes its own problems. You can see both of them on screen right now. The average person will never, ever, especially you're never going to be seeing this next to the original. So you're never going to look at this and be like, oh, I don't like that A. But when you see the original, that's the one thing, aside from the @ symbol, which is small, this is the one thing that I kind of miss. I kind of miss how tight that is compared to the new one, even though I do think Galera is, it's going to be more legible with that more open counter on that. Just a couple more things here. I showed the C's here, but I think it's going to be kind of difficult to see. On ITC Eras, it's got quite the underbite on it. You can see I've drawn this red line. When I say underbite, I'm saying the bottom part of the C is much lower than the top part of the C. If we come up here, it still is, but it's just slightly less of an underbite. Just slightly, it's nuanced, but it is slightly less compared to Eras, which I think is a great choice. I'm never a fan of the underbite. You can see it on the E here. E's, I feel like, can get away with a little bit more, but even here, you can see how much they've corrected that underbite on the E here, which I feel is a great change. Like I said, though, some of these quirks people might like really be in love with, and so if you're kind of correcting, quote unquote, some of these things, which Jen made a point to say that they're not trying to correct this with Galera, but if you are correcting some of these things, it can take away some of the charm. So some people might prefer Eras over that, but I think overall you're going to get much more support out of Galera than you would with ITC Eras with the original. If they expanded ITC Eras and made, made an ITC Eras Next or New or Now or whatever they want to tag onto it, I could see that being something to look at. But for now, I think Galera really kind of pushes ahead. This is the body copy. So I do think that it works in body copy. I don't think that it works incredibly well. judging from the sign painting inspiration and stuff like that, I don't think this is really made for body copy, but I think you can get away with it for small portions of text. I think if you were just having, I think it kind of maxes out at this. It maxes out at like 1 or 2 paragraphs. But like I said, there's no italic because the whole thing's slightly slanted, but the bold definitely stands out well there. And it looks nice. I would probably, if I was really putting this in text, I'd probably add a little bit more leading, a little bit more line spacing in it. I'm working on a baseline grid, so I always just throw it on the same baseline grid. And this is actually, if I take it off the baseline grid, it actually is by default set even tighter than I've got it. So this is 60, this is a 45 point text. He's by default got it on 54 point leading, I think, because it's supposed to be used for display. But I've got it set on a 60 point baseline grid. I mean, if I was really setting this in text, I would probably take it up to, I don't know, 75, 80. You'd want more spacing than what we got here. The last thing I want to point out about this is similar to, what did we look at the other day? Maybe Ritual. We were looking at a Helvetica alternative. I was saying that you could basically just type it out. No, it wasn't Ritual. Now it's going to bother me. Let me check real quick. 53. Who knows what we looked at last week? Signot from Typography we looked at last episode. And I was saying you could pretty much type anything into it and it's going to work for a logo. I think you can kind of do a similar thing here. So I don't know. Let's start with the name of the font, Galera. I think that this just looks great as a typeface, like as a word mark. Like this, just anything is going to look good and look official in this. I mean, you could do your FIFA. No, what were they doing? France. And you could play around with your weights and things like that too. But I think this just, it's such a well-designed font. And, obviously it's taking a lot of inspiration from a well-established typeface. But it's such a nice typeface that I think you can just kind of set it and forget it, more or less. Let me set this in something else. I don't know. YouTube doesn't really work because we all know what YouTube looks like. But, I think you could kind of set anything in this. Maybe that's too heavy, but it just looks good. I can never spell subscribe when we're on camera, but yeah, I feel like somebody that wanted a brand font and you wanted kind of that characterful, a little bit of a throwback typeface, you could do your word mark in this. You've got nine weights to it. You could really do a lot with this. If you're using ITC arrows now, I think this is a no-brainer, like an easy upgrade. But some people, like I said, already have access to this because it came pre-installed on there with like Microsoft Word. You can get it, I think, for like $188 for the family on my fonts. You're gonna get a lot less, but this one here is $280 for the family on desktop. Let me close this. I'm gonna show you the one thing I don't like. You can get the basic styles, so it'd be thin, regular, and bold. Probably gonna be enough for most people. You probably don't actually need all 9 styles, but I always like to do the pricing for the full family. So the full family is $280 on this. If you want the variable though, it's going to cost you an extra $112 to get the variable version of this with the family. So the family by itself, just 9 static weights, costs $280. If you want the variable, you have to pay an extra $112. Don't like that at all. It's very rare that I'm just like, I don't like this. I'm usually, try to be pretty objective about it, pretty fair. I do think that I don't know why that's a thing. There's no difference. It's a font file. They're using the variable font file to make this. They're interpolating, setting all the different instances. The variable file literally, it's just nothing. It's nothing more than the full font, and they're charging $112 extra for it. I don't know. That's a tough one. But the typeface itself, it looks amazing. I complain about licenses sometimes. Even if I don't like the license, I'll talk about a typeface that I like because licenses can always change. So Don't love that one little piece, but in general, I think this is a nice typeface, and I think that it is a nice evolution, nice reinterpretation of ITC eras, or just eras. Originally, it was Holstein eras or Holstein eras from the 60s, but ITC eras gets all of the credit now because that's the digital version of it. So this was Galera from DualType, designed by Jen Ramirez, and it's pretty nice. One last typeface today, and this is a fun one. We're going to finish on a fun one here. Let me get a drink of water. This one's coming from Remedy 667. Let me get some links opened up real quick. This, for anyone who's on a budget, is a $13 font. There's Nick right there. Let me go ahead and pause this and mute it. I showed this last week. If you want to see more about the design of this typeface, you can watch him do it, not live, but you can watch him do it, in progress. Does it all for you right here. Obviously, he went back, made more alternates, did some distressing and stuff like that to it. But for the most part, you can watch how the typeface is made and kind of see it in progress. We went through this last week, so I'm not going to go ahead and I'm not going to mess around with this too much. I just wanted to show you the pricing on this. $13. It's a good, simple license. Let me go ahead and pull up the license for you real quick. You can use this on almost everything. You can use it on a website. You can use it for desktop stuff. You can use it even in a PDF if you outline it. But if you want to use it for ebooks and apps and stuff like that, you just need to buy the extended version, which is going to take you up from $13 to $26. So all across the board, a very affordable typeface. This is it right here. I'm going to give you some details, but you can see it right here. I've got this layered with 3 different layers right now. This is an old school layering typeface. And we're going to talk about that in a second, the pros and cons, but let me give you the details real quick. This is coming from Remedy 667. Like I said, Zombie Vengeance. Nick Polifroni, hopefully that's kind of close. He always just says Nick from Remedy 667, so I've never said his last name out loud. 8 styles on this one. It's going to have 8 styles. It's got 4 individual styles and then italics of each of those. I don't want to say weights because they're not really weights. You're kind of getting, we'll just say 4 different styles plus 4 italics of each of those. It is static. 298 glyphs, 10 open type features, 364 languages, which was kind of shocking for a display typeface like this. I did not expect it to have such great language support, 364 languages. You could purchase it from the Foundry. There's no trial on it, but it's $13, so I think you kind of know what you're going to get. And if not, I do have a review license. So I'm able to show you the full typeface right now because I did request and receive a review license from Nick at Remedy 667. With any of these that I show you that have review licenses, I can do just that. I can review the typeface, I can show it to you, but I can't use it for anything personal or commercial. I have changed this up a little bit on the bottom here because I wanted to show you that this has 3 different glyphs for each character. So you can see as we scroll through, like the H's don't match, the I's don't match, the K's don't match. This is great to see in a display typeface like this because the one thing that always gives away a display typeface that's got distressing or rough edges on it is when there are repeats. Now, this has 3 different, I'm going to say alternates, but I know that it technically has 2 alternates and 1 default. I'm constantly saying it wrong, but 3 different alternates is what I'm going to say. It has 3 different alternates for each character. And it does have more characters than just what I'm showing you on the screen. Like I said, it has 298 glyphs. But even in a word like Zombie Vengeance, that has 4 different E's on it, you're gonna get repeats. I don't think many people will notice it. And this one actually is repeating twice. So you'd have to go in and fix that. But in general, I think 3 is enough. He did mention in the video that he was thinking about making 5. So if that's something that you would change your mind between purchasing this font or not, let him know either on his video that I have linked in the description or in the comments here, because he did say that he was open to feedback for this or any future fonts. I do not think this is meant to be layered with 3 different typeface or 3 different styles, but that's what I've done there. Let me go ahead and show you all 4 styles together here. Probably could have made these a little bit tighter. Should we do it now? Let's just do it really, really fast. Let's get these as tight as possible so I can show you all 4 of these right next to each other as big as possible. There we go. So from the top, we have charred, and then regular, and then heavy, and then blackout. Jim Girth says, I uploaded the print that reminded me of the blackout version of the community, by the way. Oh, I didn't even notice. Thank you for letting me know, Jim. So last episode, we were talking about this blackout version. And Jim was talking about some art that he had seen. So if you want to check that out, go check out the community tab on the channel. I will be checking that out after the stream for sure. This is so the blackout here is what I'm using on the background of this. And that's what it's meant to do. But Jim, last week we were talking about how it was pretty legible. And I think that if you have some context about what you're reading, yeah, it would be pretty legible. Not as legible as the others, but it would be pretty legible on its own if you had some idea of what you were going to be reading. Probably better, like Jim said last week, probably better for some texture and stuff like that. But in general, this is made for layering. So typically you would layer blackout underneath one of these other 3 versions. Obviously, you can use any of the 3 on top or even the 4th one on its own, and it's going to look great. But regular is kind of where it starts, and that's the one that he was making, that Nick was making on YouTube. I'll just keep these 3 up here for now. You can see heavy below that is just a heavier version of it, and then charred is really, really distressed. I really like the charred version. It's pretty fun, and it's perfect for a zombie-themed typeface. What I've done up here is I've layered the regular on top of the heavy, on top of the blackout. So let me go ahead and see. I could change this to the charred version, and that looks pretty cool too. That might actually even look better. But yeah, and then what you can do with this, this is the pro of being able to have layers to this. So the pro to being able to do the layers would be, you could do some really fun stuff and swap these out, regular versus the charred, versus just completely turning this off and going with just the heavy one, or turning off the heavy one and just having that. That looks great right there. There are so many things that you can do when you have these 4. The downside of doing layered fonts, as opposed to something like a colored font, colored font has very limited support. So, this is going to have more support than a color font would. But let's say I accidentally spelled this wrong and it's not supposed to have a G here, and I delete the G. Now I have to go into each and every single one of these and delete all of those characters. That's not anything specific to Zombie Vengeance. That's just something that you have to think about anytime you're going to be working with a layered font. So obviously you're only going to want to do headlines and stuff like that. You're not going to want to do very, very much, because you're not going to want to have to. You're going to want to make sure that it's perfect before you move on, because breaking down 3 layers is going to be pretty tough. Probably you'd be working with 2 layers, and I've got a few different examples of 2 layers here. You can see the top there is using blackout with heavy, blackout with regular, and then bottom is with the charred. This headline here is written in charred. The one surprise, sorry, I got distracted by chat. Jim says it looks eerily similar to this comparison page. Actually, that's funny. I'm gonna have to check it out. So the one surprise here for me was how well this looks in body copy. Obviously, it's a display typeface. It's not made for this, but that's really legible. It's all caps. There's no lowercase in this typeface, but you can see right here, this line right here is italic. I didn't even show you the italic, did I? We'll get to that in a second. I don't think the italic stands out a ton, but this typography on Wikipedia right here, that's in the italic. Is it italic, or is he calling it slanted? He's calling it oblique. That is the oblique right there. I think that it looks nice in oblique. I don't think that this was ever designed for body copy, so worrying about how well the oblique stands out amongst the upright and body copy, I don't think that is something we should worry about too much, but I did just want to point it out. You can see the bold right here, the heavy. It's okay. It doesn't stand out a ton though. We could get crazy and just go with the blackout on there. But once again, this isn't really made for a body copy, so I don't think that that's a drawback in itself either. But what I think that this text could be much better for is, you know, speech bubbles and stuff like that. Like if you had some kind of zombie theme, or if you just wanted, it doesn't have to be zombies, just because that's what the inspiration was. I think that this would work great in comics. You know, comics are fine setting them in all uppercase. And then you could do some really fun stuff with it where, you know, I've got the italicized here, but you could do some fun stuff with it where you could black out some stuff, where if you really wanted to emphasize mom, like of course you could do the heavy on there and that's going to stand out pretty good, but you could do some blackout. Blackout kind of falls apart there, doesn't it? But you could do the heavy there and like really emphasize mom. But you'd also get some of those fun extras like the chard and stuff like that. Oh, that's the oblique. The chard. So like if you wanted to emphasize the text, or if it's a different person's voice, there's some fun stuff that you could do. You know, it's got the 3 usable styles and then the blackout for the background, but I think you could do title pages with this. You could do a lot of stuff. And I know that a lot of well, speech bubbles now actually are fonts, but I know a lot of comic book designers and stuff are still hand lettering stuff, but this is much more reliable, that's for sure. And if you're doing digital, then this makes a lot of sense, and I think that it could be pretty good for that. What did we have here originally? We had the regular version of it. I like the regular version there. I don't know, man. These all look good. And like I said, there's not a ton to dive into here. You're gonna see what you get. There is an italic. I could show you that. Oh, here it is right here. So here's the italic version, the oblique version of it. But it's pretty fun. I think there's more that you can do with this than you would expect, especially when you start layering 3 of them on top of each other. Then I think that's when the fun like really starts. And you do have 3 alternates. I know it's really only 2, but you have 3 different alternates for each one of these characters. The chart looks really nice on there. I don't know why I didn't use that the first time. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up. I think that showcases it pretty well. Yeah, I think that it's a really nice typeface, a really fun one, and incredibly affordable one. Other than, you know, a still open font license, it doesn't get much better than $13 for a typeface. So let me go ahead and put my face on the screen and we'll get out of here. I think, there we go. So like I said at the top of the show, I'm not going to be here Tuesday, not going to be here Friday. I'm taking off next week. I am moving. Still going to be in the same city, just moving a little bit down the street, new apartment, a little bit of an upgrade. So I will be back on the 19th. Let me double check that that's the right date. Yes, Tuesday, May 19th, I will be back with episode 55. If any of the new releases, you know, strike your fancy, if you want to see a deep dive on those, let me know, because I do listen to what you guys talk about in terms of the deep dives that you want to see. And that's why we did Baby Condor. That's why we did Dargan. That's why we did, you know, a bunch of these typefaces that we've recently done deep dives on, because I showed them in new releases. You guys wanted to see the deep dives, and so I listened. Onji Studio, Jim Girth, I appreciate you guys hanging out in chat tonight. I hope you have a good weekend. Everybody watching the replay, thanks for watching. I was Curtis Simpson, and this was Typography News number 54. Last week I said the wrong number. 54. I will see you for 55 in, 11 days. Bye.